They say death brings clarity. In my last moments, lying in that hospital bed with no one by my side, I finally understood. The years of isolation, the stolen inheritance, the destroyed relationships, none of it was accidental. It was all her. My stepmother, Victoria Chen, the woman everyone thought was an angel. But angels don't push daughters downstairs and call it clumsiness. Angels don't forge signatures to steal trust funds. Angels don't whisper poison into a dying man's ear until he writes his own daughter out of his will. I died alone at 28 with nothing but regrets. And then I opened my eyes to my 15th birthday. The morning light streaming through my bedroom window felt wrong. This room, my childhood bedroom with lavender walls, I hadn't seen it in over a decade. My hands were young and unmarked. The date on my phone confirmed it, June 3rd, the day before Dad would introduce us to Victoria, the day before everything went wrong. But this time I knew everything. I knew about her devoted daughter act, the fake allergies, how she'd crop me out of every family photo, the documents in her designer handbag proving she'd been planning this for months. In my first life I was blindsided. This time I was armed with 13 years of painful knowledge. Dad's voice called from downstairs and my chest tightened. Dad, healthy, laughing, alive. In my first life, Victoria's subtle medication tampering would put him in an early grave within 5 years. I wouldn't let that happen again. Dad was at the stove grinning. Princess, I wanted to talk to you about something. I've met someone. Her name is Victoria. She's kind, successful, and I think you'll really like her. We're having dinner tomorrow night. I forced a smile, showing cautious optimism instead of rage. That's great, Dad. I'm happy you're happy. That day, I prepared for war. I backed up every family document, birth certificates, property deeds, Mom's will. I photographed Dad's medical records and created encrypted cloud backups. I sent copies to Aunt Marie with a note asking her to keep them safe. In my first life, Victoria had systematically cut Aunt Marie out of our lives. When the doorbell rang the next evening, I was ready. Victoria Chen was exactly as I remembered. 42, but could pass for 35 with polished elegance. Chestnut hair in soft waves, designer dress, and a smile that could melt glaciers. You must be Elena, she said warmly. Your father has told me so much about you. I've been so nervous to meet you. Perfect opener, vulnerable, endearing, respectful. In my first life, I'd melted immediately. Dinner was a masterclass in manipulation. Victoria asked about my interests with seemingly genuine curiosity. She laughed at my jokes, complimented my artwork, mentioned losing her own parents young. Every word calculated, every gesture rehearsed. But I noticed what I'd missed before. The way her smile never reached her eyes when she looked at me. How her hand lingered possessively on Dad's arm. The quick assessing glances she took of our home, not admiring but appraising value. Elena, your father mentioned you're interested in art school, Victoria said over dessert. That's wonderful, so creative. In my first life within 6 months, she'd convinced Dad that art school was impractical, then sabotaged my applications. Thank you, I said sweetly. Mom actually set up a trust fund for my education. I watched Victoria's eye twitch just slightly, the first mention of Mom's money. How thoughtful of her, Victoria murmured. I'm sure you'll make her proud. The trust fund she'd drain within 3 years through fake family emergencies. After she left, Dad was glowing. So what do you think? She seems nice, I said carefully. How long have you two been dating? About 3 months. I know it's fast, but Elena, when you know, you know. 3 months. In my first life, they'd be engaged in 6 weeks, married in 4 months. That night, I did what I should have done 13 years ago. I investigated. Victoria Chen wasn't her real name. It took 3 hours of digging through old social media, cached websites, and public records, but I found her. Victoria Walsh, formerly married to a wealthy widower in Seattle, divorced after 2 years when he discovered forged signatures on loan documents. Before that, she'd been engaged to a man in Portland who died in a suspicious fall down the stairs. Investigation concluded accident. She inherited everything. My blood ran cold. The stairs. In my first life, I'd fallen down the stairs 9 months after she married Dad. Broken arm, concussion, and the beginning of her narrative that I was clumsy and accident-prone. I kept digging. 2 more relationships, both with wealthy widowers. Both ended with the men dead or broke, and Victoria walking away richer. She was a predator, and Dad was her next target. But she'd made a mistake this time. She'd chosen a man with a daughter who'd lived through this nightmare before. I gathered everything: screenshots, articles, public records, marriage certificates, divorce filings. I compiled it all into an encrypted folder and made multiple copies. The next morning, I confronted Dad. "I need you to run a background check on Victoria." His smile faded. "Elena, what's this about?" "Please, professional background check before you get more serious. Sweetheart, I know you're worried about someone taking your mom's place, but this isn't about Mom." I held his gaze. "It's about protecting you, protecting us. If she's who she says she is, the background check will confirm it and I'll apologize. But if she's not..." He wrestled with it, his happiness versus his daughter's intuition. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, I'll hire someone." The background check took 3 days. I watched Dad's face as he read the report. Color drained from his cheeks. His hands trembled. "The Seattle thing was sealed," he said quietly. "How did you know?" I couldn't tell him about the rebirth, about living through her torment. So I lied. I had a bad feeling. I looked her up online and found old articles. He looked at me, really looked at me. "You're 15 years old and you investigated my girlfriend like a private detective? You taught me to trust my instincts. My instincts said something was wrong." Dad was quiet for a long moment, then pulled me into a hug. "Your mother would be so proud of you. You just saved us both." Dad called Victoria that evening and ended things. She tried every tactic: tears, anger, threats, seduction. He recorded everything. 2 weeks later, she showed up at our house. I answered the door. "You," she hissed, her mask finally slipping. "You ruined everything." "No," I said calmly. "I saved everything. I saved my father. I saved myself. And I saved every person you might have destroyed after us." Her eyes filled with hate. "You're just a child. You don't know what you've done. I'm old enough to recognize evil when I see it. Leave Victoria. Or should I call you Victoria Walsh? Or maybe you prefer one of your other names." She left. Dad filed for a restraining order the next day. Life didn't become perfect overnight. Dad was heartbroken, embarrassed, and cautious. But he was alive, he was healthy, and he was mine. I went to art school using Mom's trust fund exactly as she intended. I maintained my relationship with Aunt Marie, who became my mentor. And I watched Dad eventually find real love with someone genuine, someone who loved him for who he was, not what he had. Sometimes I wonder about my first life. Was all that suffering wasted? But then I realize it taught me to see through pretty masks and sweet lies. It taught me that being kind doesn't mean being blind. It taught me that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is trust your instincts and fight back. I was given an impossible gift, a second chance. And I used it not just for revenge, but for justice, for protection, for love. Victoria tried to ruin me in one life. In this one, I made sure she couldn't ruin anyone else. And that's the real victory.